Have you ever had that sinking feeling like you just blinked and years flew by, but somehow nothing has really changed? You're living the same routine. The dreams you once chased feel like echoes from a different life. The goals you set? They've quietly faded into the background. And that big vision you had for your future? It's starting to feel more like a fantasy than something you could actually live. You wake up, go through the motions, do what needs to be done, and deep down, you're waiting. Waiting for something to shift. But it never does. So, what gives? Why do some people wake up one day, make a bold move, and completely change their lives while others stay stuck, watching the years go by? Today, we're going to pull the curtain back on a quiet but powerful force that might be keeping you stuck without you even realizing it. It's not laziness. It's not fear. It's not even procrastination. It's passivity, that invisible habit of standing still while life races forward. Passivity is sneaky. It doesn't show up like it races. It doesn't sound alarms or demand attention. It feels safe, familiar. It disguises itself as patience, overthinking, or being careful. But make no mistake, passivity is a slow poison. It keeps you locked into situations that don't fulfill you. It lets fear whisper in your ear and steer your decisions. It convinces you that waiting is wise, when in reality, action is the only way forward. So where does it come from? Why do some people take courage and move forward while others feel paralyzed? Psychologists have been studying this for decades. And one of the most powerful explanations comes from Martin Seligman, the father of positive psychology. He introduced the idea of learned helplessness, and it's a game changer in understanding how passivity takes hold. In one of his most well-known experiments, Seligman exposed dogs to repeated negative experiences they couldn't control. Over time, even when they were finally given a clear way to escape, they didn't move. They'd learned that trying didn't matter. The same thing happens to us. When we experience failure, rejection, or disappointment enough times, we start to believe that nothing we do will make a difference. And that belief quietly shapes our mindset, our habits, and eventually, our entire reality. But failure isn't the only thing feeding this problem. There's something even more dangerous, more subtle, and way more common. Comfort. Yeah, comfort. Have you ever noticed how easy it is to settle into a routine, even if it's one that makes you feel stuck or uninspired? Our brains are wired for safety and predictability. That wiring kept our ancestors alive. It told them to avoid risk, danger, and the unknown. But in the modern world, that same instinct can work against us. We start choosing what's easy over what's meaningful. Days blow into weeks. Weeks blow into months. And suddenly years have slipped by. That's the real danger of passivity. It doesn't scream at you. It whispers. It tells you there's still time. Wait for the right moment. Tomorrow's better. But here's the brutal truth. There is no perfect moment. There is only now. And the longer you wait, the harder it becomes to act. So let's get real for a second. What does passivity actually cost us? A man named Viktor Frankl, a psychiatrist and Holocaust survivor, wrote one of the most profound answers to that question in his book Man's Search for Meaning. He said the driving force in life isn't pleasure, as Freud believed, and it's not power, as Nietzsche believed. It's meaning. When we lack a sense of meaning, we drift. We feel lost. We stagnate. And passivity is one of the quickest ways to strip your life of meaning. Think about it. When was the last time you felt truly alive? Was it when you were sitting around waiting for the perfect moment? Or was it when you took a leap, stepped outside your comfort zone, pushed yourself towards something that actually mattered? Meaning isn't found in comfort. It's built through action. But here's the part nobody talks about. If passivity is so damaging, why do we keep falling into it? Why do we hesitate even when we know we need to act? Here's where it gets real. The answer might not be what you think. Picture this, you're standing at the edge of a decision. It could change everything. You know you should move. You know you need to act. And yet, you pause. You say, I'll wait till I'm ready. You say tomorrow. But tomorrow turns into next week. Then next month. And before you know it, nothing's changed. That's the invisible grip of passivity. And it's often caused by something we rarely see coming. The comfort trap. On the surface, comfort seems like a good thing. Who doesn't want to feel secure, safe, at ease? But here's the paradox. The more comfortable you are, the less likely you are to take the kinds of risks that actually lead to growth. Comfort feels good now, but long-term? It's often what steals your potential. Ask yourself, have you ever stayed in a job you didn't like just because starting over felt too overwhelming? Have you stayed in a relationship that made you feel stuck just because change felt scary? That's the comfort trap at work. It tricks you into thinking that staying where you are is better than stepping into the unknown. But the truth? The biggest regrets in life aren't the mistakes we make. They're the chances we never take. And science backs this up. Psychologists have found that our brains are hardwired to avoid uncertainty. Back in the day, that made sense. Uncertainty could literally get you killed. But today, that same instinct is keeping you from writing that book, starting that business, moving to that new city, or asking that big question. Here's the raw truth. No one ever built a life they loved by staying comfortable. Every person who's done something meaningful had to move through fear, not around it. The difference between people who live boldly and those who stay stuck isn't talent, intelligence, or luck. It's the willingness to take action even when it's hard. So the question is, how do you do that? How do you break out of this loop of passivity and actually start moving? Let's start with something simple but powerful. Mel Robbins, a speaker and author, came up with something called the 30-second rule. Here's how it works. The moment you feel the urge to take action on something, count down. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, go. Move. Take the step. Don't let your brain talk you out of it. Because if you hesitate even for a second, your mind will fill the space with excuses, fear, and self-doubt. This technique interrupts your thought loop and forces your ability to lead the way. And sometimes that's all you need. But there's another mindset shift that's just as important. Stop waiting to feel motivated. Motivation is unpredictable. It's a feeling, and feelings come and go. If you only act when you feel like it, you rarely take action at all. What you need instead is discipline. Discipline means doing what needs to be done, even when you don't feel like it. It means making choices based on your goals, not your mood. James Clear, author of Atomic Habits, said it best. Success isn't about massive changes. It's about small, consistent actions. Just 1% improvement every day adds up. It compounds, and eventually it transforms your entire life. Have you ever stayed in a job that drained you just because the idea of starting over felt too overwhelming? Or maybe you've stayed in a relationship that no longer brought you happiness simply because change felt scarier than staying stuck. That's the comfort trap in full effect. It tricks you into thinking that staying where you were is safer than facing the unknown. But here's the hard truth. The biggest regrets in life aren't about the risks we took, they're about the ones we never had the courage to take. Psychologists say our brains are hardwired to avoid uncertainty. Back in the day, that helped our ancestors survive. Predictability meant safety. Avoiding the unknown could literally mean the difference between life and death. But today, that same instinct is the very thing holding us back. We're not running from lions anymore, we're avoiding opportunities. We're not dodging danger, we're dodging growth. And here's where it all flips. Nobody who ever did anything great did it from a place of comfort. Every single person who achieved something meaningful had to step into the unknown. They had to lean into fear, not run from it. They had to act even when they didn't feel ready. So what sets those people apart? It's not talent. It's not luck. It's not even intelligence. It's their willingness to take action even when it's scary. So that brings us to a crucial question. How do you actually break free from this invisible grip of passivity? Well, one of the most effective tools comes from Mel Robbins. She calls it the 30-second rule, and it's incredibly simple. Here's how it works. The moment you feel the urge to act on a goal, start counting down. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, then move. Just move. Don't give your mind a chance to sabotage the moment. Don't give fear a chance to creep in. You act before your brain talks you out of it. This tiny shift can completely change the way you approach decision-making. Because the truth is, the more time you give yourself to hesitate, the more time you give fear to win. That one moment of hesitation is often the only thing standing between you and real change. Another powerful approach? Stop relying on motivation. A lot of people are waiting for the stars to align before they act. They're waiting to feel ready, to feel confident, to feel motivated. But here's the reality. Motivation is unreliable. It comes and goes like the weather. You can't build a life on that. What you can build on is discipline. Discipline means doing what needs to be done, even when you don't feel like it. It's showing up for yourself when no one's watching. It's making decisions based on your goals, not your feelings. James Clear, author of Atomic Habits, put it perfectly. Success doesn't come from one massive leap. It comes from consistent small actions repeated over time. If you improve just 1% every day, those tiny changes start to compound. And the results? They can be extraordinary. But the scary part is that passivity works the same way, just in the opposite direction. Every small moment of hesitation, every time you delay or avoid or put something off, it builds. And over time, those tiny moments of inaction snowball into a life filled with regret. And here's something that most people completely overlook. Passivity doesn't just show up in the big decisions. It's not just about quitting your job or starting a business or moving to a new city. It's in the everyday moments. It's in the hesitation before speaking up in a meeting. It's in the delay before going to the gym. It's in the endless scrolling on your phone when you could be working on something that actually matters to you. These little moments matter more than you think. Because every time you choose an action, you're reinforcing the identity of someone who doesn't follow through. That's why self-awareness is so important. You've got to start noticing when and where passivity shows up in your life. Ask yourself, what are the things I keep putting off? Where am I letting fear, comfort, or doubt call the shots? What would my life look like if I stopped hesitating and just took the first step? But before we talk about the most powerful way to overcome passivity, there's something deeper that we need to uncover, something that keeps millions of people stuck. It's not fear, it's not laziness, and it's not a lack of ambition. It's something more subtle and more dangerous. It's called identity paralysis. Identity paralysis happens when you start defining yourself by your current limitations instead of your potential. It sounds like this. I've always been this way. I'm just not a disciplined person. I'm bad at making decisions. I'm not a natural leader. Sound familiar? This is the voice of a fixed mindset. And the more you repeat those things to yourself, the more real they become. Because your identity shapes your actions and your actions shape your future. So when you believe you're not capable of change, you stop trying. Psychologist Carol Dweck introduced this idea in her work on fixed versus growth mindsets. People with a fixed mindset believe that who they are is set in stone. They avoid challenges because they don't want to risk failure. They fear that failing means they're flawed. But people with a growth mindset, they believe they can learn, improve, and grow. They see challenges as opportunities, not threats. And when they fail, they don't take it personally, they just see it as part of the process. Here's the connection: passivity thrives in a fixed mindset. The more you believe your situation or personality can change, the more stuck you'll feel. But when you switch to a growth mindset, when you realize that you're not defined by your past or your current habits, passivity starts to lose its grip. So how do you make that shift? Start with identity-based action. James Clear talks about this too. True change doesn't come from setting goals, it comes from changing your self-image. Instead of saying, I want to write a book, start saying, I'm a writer. Instead of saying, I want to get in shape, say, I'm someone who takes care of my body. Then prove it with action. Want to be more confident? Start acting like someone who is. Want to be more disciplined? Start making decisions that a disciplined person would make. Every action is a vote for the type of person you want to become. Most people wait to feel like that person before they take action, but the truth is action creates identity, not the other way around. And once that identity starts to shift, you build momentum. You start to see yourself differently. And with that new identity, passivity starts to crumble. But we're still missing one piece. Even with the right mindset, even with identity-based habits, there's still something that gets in the way for a lot of people. It's emotional resistance. Taking action doesn't just require effort, it requires emotional strength. Because when you step outside your comfort zone, it triggers fear. Maybe it's fear of failure. Maybe it's fear of judgment. Or maybe it's just fear of letting go of who you used to be. Neuroscientists have found that your brain reacts to psychological threats the same way it reacts to physical ones. When you think about doing something new or uncertain, the amygdala, the fear center in your brain, fires up. It floods your body with stress signals. That's why action feels so hard sometimes. Your brain is trying to protect you. But here's the breakthrough: you don't need to eliminate fear to act. You just need to act anyway. Every time you move forward in spite of fear, you're building something called psychological flexibility. It's the ability to take action even when things feel uncomfortable or uncertain. And the more you practice this, the more natural it becomes. So now we've uncovered what's really holding us back: the comfort trap, identity paralysis, and emotional resistance. But what happens when someone breaks through all of that? What happens when someone refuses to let passivity define them and decides to live intentionally instead? That brings us back to the man who figured life out. He wasn't a genius. He wasn't born with any special advantage. He didn't get lucky. He just decided, consciously, deliberately, that he wasn't gonna sleepwalk through life anymore. He was tired of waking up feeling like he was falling behind, that he was meant for something more but couldn't quite reach it. He was tired of blaming the world, tired of blaming himself. Most of all, he was tired of waiting. So he made one simple decision: to become the kind of person who acts. Not when it's easy, not when it's convenient, not when it's comfortable, but now. And that one decision changed everything. He started small, waking up earlier, journaling at night, saying no to things that drained his energy, saying yes to things that scared him. And over time, those small actions compounded. He stopped overthinking and started executing. He stopped chasing motivation and built discipline. He stopped waiting for permission and gave himself the authority to move. He realized something that most people never do. Clarity doesn't come before action. It comes from action. He didn't need to have the perfect plan to begin. He just needed to begin. And with each step forward, the path became clearer. Momentum took over. Confidence started to grow. Not because he had all the answers, but because he had finally taken control. And here's the part most people miss. His life didn't change overnight. There were setbacks, doubts, bad days, but he kept going, not because he felt certain, but because he had decided to stop living on autopilot. He started to see opportunities where he used to see obstacles. He started to feel proud of who he was becoming. He stopped asking, "What if I fail?" and started asking, "What if I don't try?" And years later, people started asking him, "How did you do it? What's your secret?" And all he could say was, "I stopped waiting." So, how do you become that person? You don't need to change everything at once. In fact, you shouldn't. That's just another way passivity disguises itself, by overwhelming you into inaction. Instead, start with one decision, one action, one vote for the future you want to live in. Write the email, make the call, get up early, go to the gym, start the project, say the thing you've been holding in. It's not about whether it's perfect, it's about whether it's done. Because done builds confidence. Done creates momentum. Done is how you win. And the best part? You can start today, right now, not tomorrow, not next week, now. Because the life you want isn't waiting for you to be ready, it's waiting for you to start. So let me leave you with one final question. What would your life look like a year from now if you just stopped waiting? Not waiting to feel ready, not waiting to feel confident, not waiting for someone to give you permission, just acting. That version of you, the one who takes action, that person exists. And every small move you make today brings you closer to them. So the next time you feel fear, the next time you feel doubt, the next time you feel like putting it off, pause. Count it down. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, go. And become the person who figured life out. Not because you had all the answers, but because you refused to stay stuck.